Hello everyone, I'm Leanna Doherty and I am here at the Daily Dose at Come and See Friends Church. I'm standing in for Billy Joe Summers and we are in chapter 7 of the book of Esther. So if everyone would please go ahead, get your Bibles and turn to chapter 7 of the book of Esther. That's in the Old Testament, and I'm going to do a short recap. So there's only 10 chapters in the whole book. It's a short book. You could easily sit down and read it in one setting, and you would probably get a more powerful message from it if you read it all together, because it's so many plot twists and things like that. And we're going to read today about our villain of our story. He is an Agagite. He's a descendant of King Agag, and Agag is an ancient enemy of the Hebrew people, or of Agag and King Saul did many battles together, and so the Agagites and the Israelites are ancient enemies. So here we have a descendant of the Agagites. Here is the villain in our story, and he has a thing out for a man named Mordecai. Mordecai is the cousin of the queen, and so at this time nobody knows that the queen is Jewish. She has concealed that from everyone. There's a few of her attendants who know that she's Jewish, but the king himself doesn't even know that she's Jewish. And so there's been an edict issued on a certain day of the year, one day of 1 year, to have everyone in all 127 provinces that the king rules over to kill every Jew, man, woman, and child. As a matter of fact, not just kill them, but to annihilate and kill. And there's a third one. We're going to read about it in just a second. So let's read about where we are now. We're picking up. Esther has approached the king and asked him and Haman to please come to a wine. It's basically like, come over to my house for drinks. It's called a wine banquet. So there's no food. It's just, let's just come over for some drinks, that kind of thing. And so she's already had 2 chances where she was supposed to approach the king and say, please change your mind, please do something so that all of my people aren't murdered and wiped out in all 127 of your provinces. So this is now her 3rd time. She said at the last banquet, come back tomorrow and I'll tell you what I want. So here we are picking up in chapter 7. I'm reading in the New King James Version if you're interested. All right. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther, and on the 2nd day at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be done." Then Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss." So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, "Who is he, and where is he who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. I'm in verse 8. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he also assault the queen while I am in the house?" As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. All right, so here we have a major turn. Haman, who was set out to have Mordecai murdered because he would not bow to him, ended up getting impaled. They say hanged on the gallows, but it's not a hanging like we think of hanged by a noose around the neck. It is a hanging as you dangle from a pole that's impaled through your body. And so this one says that it is 50 cubits high, which is extremely high. It's about 8 stories up in the air. And so instead of it was built for Mordecai in Haman's front yard. Instead of it and Mordecai being impaled on it, Haman is impaled on it. And so his dead body is on display in front of his own house. So I just want to go through a little bit of some of the language here. Up to half the kingdom is what the king responds to Esther when he's asking her, "What is it that you want?" So that is a common, it's just a phrase that the king would use to say, "Ask me whatever you want." And so nobody would really be asking for up to half the kingdom. That would probably not go over very well, but it is a way for them to say, "Whatever you want, just ask me. I'm going to give it. It's yours. Ask and it will be done." So that was an expression that the king used, up to half the kingdom, and he says that a couple of times. Esther finally gets the courage up here to say what's going on, and God just makes it all happen. So the book of Esther does not actually mention God, but we know that God is working behind the scenes to make all these miracles happen. It says here in chapter 1 that they casted what they call pur, P-U-R, and even today the Jewish people celebrate a festival called Purim, and it is a celebration of the victory that God made for them. In verses 4, verse 3, where she says, "Let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request." This is similar language. This is a hearkening to Moses saying, "Let my people go." She's recalling when God has saved the entire nation of Jewish people, or Israelites at the time, before they were in Israel, but all of God's chosen people were saved all at one time by the request, "Let my people go." So she's using that same type of language when she says, "Spare my life and all of my people." So the king is just now finding out that this is all happening, as far as it affecting Queen Esther, whose name is actually Hadassah. Her Hebrew name is Hadassah, sorry. But Esther is the name that she goes by, and the king does refer to her by calling her in verse 5 Queen Esther, reminding her of who she is. Now, she was very afraid when she first went to him in the previous chapters. So please go back and read those chapters, because chapter 8 is where the Jews are saved. So in this one, we get rid of the villain, but we still have a problem because 127 provinces are just waiting for the day when they get to kill every Jew, which means that they'll be able to move into their houses, set up shop. It'll be like having a second home for them. They'll get rid of all the bodies, and then they'll just be wearing their clothes and using their utensils and taking over their livestock, and they'll have all those those people out of the way and they'll plunder all of their things. So this day is still coming down the line for them. The edict has already gone out. So just because we've gotten rid of Haman, that's just step one for God. God has bigger plans for them. So stick around for the next chapters. We only have 3 more. And I'm going to defer to Billy Joe, since she's here, to close us out with the closing for God's Daily Dose.
Hi, welcome everyone. So today's daily reminder: let's fully rely on God each and every day. Let's submit ourselves to God, have faith and trust in Jesus. Let's seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. And we want to be in the Word daily, but we don't want to just know it. We want to live it, love it, and obey it. And we want to pray always and about everything. So y'all have a blessed day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow for Miss Leanna to finish up chapter 8. Thank y'all.